Okay, so we're back, and
Right.
this time we're diving deep into a case that's really gripped a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's the disappearance of Maura Murray.
Right. Right.
So it's February 9th,
Mm-hmm.
2004. We're in the White Mountains of New Hampshire.
Yeah. A very unforgiving time of year.
The dead of winter, Route 112. Imagine that.
Absolutely.
Just picture it for a second.
Yeah.
Remote, isolated,
Right.
middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
This young woman
Yeah.
crashes her car
Mm-hmm.
and then just vanishes. Poof,
It's strange.
gone.
It's really strange.
So what happened?
Right. That's the million-dollar question.
That's the question. That's what we're here to try and untangle.
It's hard to overstate the importance of that setting, though.
Right.
I mean, the White Mountains in February,
Yeah.
that's not a joke. Visibility is terrible. The roads are treacherous.
Right.
And the cold.
Yeah.
The cold can kill you in no time.
Yeah, you're not out there for very long before you're in serious trouble.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So for more to just disappear like that
Right.
from such a place, well, it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder about her state of mind, what might have happened.
Yeah,
It's unsettling.
it is. So that's exactly what we're going to do in this deep dive. You and we're going to take apart the details of this case piece by piece. We're going to lay it all out, the facts, the questions that still linger, and what's really gotten people talking again. Some of the new things that have come up, especially this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been 20 years, more than 20 years, and it feels like we might be getting some movement. It's been a cold case for so long.
A long time.
But these new developments, they give you a little bit of hope, a little
Mhm.
bit of a new angle, even if it's still very uncertain.
Right, and that's the thing. We want to try and paint as clear a picture as possible for you listening, for you trying to make sense of it all. What do we actually know? And maybe even more importantly, what do we still not know?
Because that's what grabs people, isn't it?
Eh,
The unknown.
the mystery.
This case, I don't know, it's just unsettling,
It is.
You have this young woman, seems like she had a pretty normal life.
Yep.
Then boom, she's just gone.
Vanished.
And it's that contrast, I think, that makes it so, well, it just gets under your skin.
Yeah, for sure. So, before we go any further, we should probably lay out where we're getting all of this information from. We've dug through accounts, investigations, pretty much everything we could find, spanning the entire 21 years since Maura disappeared, including, as we've said, some pretty huge updates from this year, 2025.
Right. And the thing about time in these cases,
Yeah.
it's a double-edged sword.
How so?
Well, memories fade, people move on. That's natural. But technology keeps advancing. And sometimes you can apply that new understanding to a case that's gone cold. And suddenly details pop out that no one saw before. It's fascinating.
Right, so it's like the passage of time can actually help in some ways.
Exactly. It can. And that's what's so interesting about these recent developments. It feels like we might finally be getting a fresh look at this case, at this mystery that's been stuck for so long.
Okay, so what's our mission here? What are we actually trying to do in this deep dive?
Our goal, I'd say, is to take you through it all step by step. The key events, the different theories that have been put forward, the new leads, and try to piece together a narrative, a story that makes sense, to shed some light on this puzzle that has stumped so many people for so long.
Right, because it's one thing to just list out the events, but it's another thing to understand what it all means.
Exactly. It's about looking at the timeline, but also understanding the context. What was happening in Maura's life? What was the environment like that night? It's about taking each piece of the puzzle and not just seeing it in isolation, but seeing how it fits into the bigger picture.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Let's rewind back to February 2004 and take a look at Maura's life leading up to her disappearance.
Right. So we have this 21-year-old woman, Maura Murray, nursing student at UMass Amherst, from Hanson, Massachusetts. She was apparently quite athletic in high school, part of a big Irish Catholic family, parents divorced.
Okay, pretty typical college student, it seems.
Right, on the surface, yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like a pretty normal life.
But as we all know, things aren't always what they seem.
Exactly. And, in cases like this, it's those seemingly ordinary details, the family, the relationships, that often become the most important clues. So we know she had an older brother, Fred, two older sisters, Kathleen and Julie,
Right.
and then a younger half-brother named Kurt. And she was dating this Army lieutenant, Bill Rausch. who was stationed in Oklahoma. So it's not just about her. It's about this whole network of people, this web of connections that all get impacted when she disappears.
Yeah, you can't underestimate the ripple effect something like this has.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so she had this family, this boyfriend, seemed like she was doing all right in school, but like you said, things aren't always what they seem.
Right. And that's something we always have to keep in mind. Just because someone looks like they have it all together on the outside, it doesn't mean there aren't things going on beneath the surface.
So what were some of the cracks, so to speak, starting to show in Maura's life?
Well, there are a few things that stand out when you look back. Just a few days before she vanished, on February 5th, she's working at this art gallery on campus, and she gets this phone call from her sister, Kathleen. And it's clearly a really upsetting call.
How do we know that?
Well, witnesses say she was visibly shaken. She just kept repeating, "my sister," over and over. She was so distraught that her supervisor actually sent her back to her dorm.
Wow.
Yeah. And we know from later accounts that Kathleen was struggling with alcoholism at the time, so that could have been the source of the distress. But either way, it clearly hit Maura hard.
So some family trouble, potentially.
Yeah, it seems like there were some things going on behind the scenes.
Then, just a couple of days later, on February 7th, her dad, Fred, comes to visit her at Amherst. They have dinner together, and then Maura borrows his car, a Toyota Corolla. This is where things start to take a really worrying turn, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Early the next morning, around 3:30 a.m., she crashes the car. And it wasn't just a fender bender. It was pretty serious. We're talking $10,000 worth of damage, right into a guardrail on Route 9 in Hadley.
So something caused her to lose control? Was she tired? Distracted? Drunk?
That's what's so hard to know. But what's really interesting, and I think really telling, is Fred's account of Maura after the accident. He described her as deeply disturbed.
Deeply disturbed.
Yeah. And, he's her dad. I'd say he knows her pretty well. So for him to use that phrase, it suggests that something was seriously wrong.
Yeah, there was definitely something going on. Okay, so now we're getting to the day of her disappearance, February 9th. And her actions that day, they're strange.
Yeah.
She emails her professors, her work supervisor, says there's been a death in the family and she needs to be gone for a week. But later on, her family confirms that this was completely made up.
Yeah, that lie is one of the things that's always stuck with me. I mean, why lie?
Right.
Why make up such a specific and serious story? It makes you wonder what she was trying to hide, what she was planning.
Yeah, it's like she was intentionally creating a cover story, almost like she knew she was going to disappear.
Right. It's very deliberate.
So she sends those emails, and then what?
Then later that day, she's using MapQuest, searching for directions. And, this was back before everyone had smartphones with GPS, so MapQuest was the go-to.
I remember those days.
Yeah, me too. So, anyway, she's looking for directions to Burlington, Vermont.
Vermont.
Yeah, and also the Berkshires.
Okay, so 2 destinations north of Amherst.
Exactly. And not only that, she's also making calling different hotels in Stowe, Vermont.
So Vermont seems to be the main focus.
It does.
Okay, so we've got the fake emails, the directions to Vermont, the calls to hotels. It's starting to look like she's planning a trip, but why all the secrecy?
Right. What's she running from? Or who is she running to? We still don't know.
Then, around 3:4 that afternoon, she withdraws $280 from an ATM. And that was basically all the money she had in her account.
Yeah, she pretty much cleaned out her bank account, so it's not like she was just planning to pop out for a quick bite to eat or something.
This was a deliberate action. She knew she was going to need cash.
Right. And what's interesting is that there's CCTV footage from the ATM, and it shows her alone and seemingly calm.
Calm.
Yeah, that's what the reports say. Calm.
Which is pretty weird considering her dad's description of her as deeply disturbed just a couple of days earlier.
Yeah, it's a strange contrast. It's like she made some kind of decision and now she's at peace with it.
Or maybe she was just really good at hiding how she was feeling.
That's possible, too.
Okay, next stop is a liquor store. And she doesn't just buy a single bottle of something. She gets a pretty substantial amount of alcohol. Bailey's, Irish cream, Kahlua, vodka, and a box of Franzia wine.
Yeah, it's a lot for one person. And it's interesting the specific thing she chose. I mean, what was she planning to do with all that?
Right. Was she going to drink it all herself? Was she meeting someone? Was it for a specific purpose?
We don't know. It's another one of those details that just adds to the mystery.
And then around 4:30 p.m., she leaves Amherst.
Gone.
Heading north. So let's just recap for a second. We have a young woman who has seemingly planned to be away, has researched locations in Vermont, has withdrawn all her money, has bought a bunch of alcohol, and is now on the road.
Yeah.
But the big why behind all of this, the reason for her actions, is still completely unknown.
Exactly. We have the what, but the why is still a giant question mark.
Okay, so fast forward to that evening, February 9th. It's getting dark, and Maura is now in Haverhill, New Hampshire, driving along Route 112. And like we said before, this is a remote area, very isolated, especially in the winter.
Right, winding roads, dense forest, snow everywhere.
Mm.
If you were to get into trouble out there, it could be a while before anyone found you.
And that's exactly what happens. At approximately 7:27 p.m., Maura's car crashes near a sharp bend known as the Weathered Barn Curve.
A local resident, Faith Westman, hears the crash, a loud thud, looks out her window, and there it is. Maura's black Saturn sedan, off the road and stuck in a snowbank. She immediately calls the police.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah, if she hadn't called when she did, who knows how long it would have been before anyone knew about the crash.
Exactly. So the police are on their way, but in the meantime, a school bus driver, Butch Atwood, who lived just a short distance away, stops to see if he can help. He sees Maura standing outside the car, says she seems shaken, but okay.
But here's the thing. She tells him she's already called AAA. But later on, it turns out that she never actually called AAA.
So she lied.
It seems that way.
Why would she do that?
That's a good question. Was she trying to get rid of him to make sure he didn't stick around? Was she hiding something?
It's strange.
It is. So anyway, Butch heads home, which was just down the road, to call 911 because, as we've mentioned, cell service was spotty out there.
So there's this gap in time where Maura is alone at the crash site.
Exactly. And those minutes, they're crucial. It's during that time that she disappears.
The state police arrive at the scene at 7:46 p.m.
Not even 20 minutes after the initial call.
But Maura is gone. Vanished.
Her car is there, though. It's locked.
Blood.
The windshield is cracked. The airbags have deployed.
It's a pretty serious crash.
Yeah, definitely not just a little bump.
What did they find inside the car?
Well, a bunch of stuff. It's like a jumbled snapshot of her life. Her AAA card, blank accident report forms, gloves, CDs, makeup, even some diamond jewelry.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like she packed a bag or anything like that.
No, not really. But there were those driving directions to Burlington, the ones she printed out from MapQuest earlier.
So Vermont is still in the picture.
Right. There was also her favorite stuffed animal, a book about mountain climbing accidents in the White Mountains, which is kind of eerie, and a box of Franzia wine, the one she bought earlier that had broken open in the crash.
Okay, so some random stuff, but nothing that really gives us a clear answer about where she went or why.
Exactly. But what's really interesting is what's missing from the car.
Like what?
Well, the Baileys, the Kahlua, and the vodka, they were all gone. And so were her debit card, her credit cards, and her cell phone. And we know her phone was never used again after the crash.
So those are some pretty big things to be missing.
Yeah, they are. Especially the phone and the bank cards. I mean, if she was planning to run away and start a new life, she would need those things.
Right, you can't really get very far without money or a way to communicate.
Exactly.
Then there's this really weird thing, a rag from her emergency kit
Yeah.
stuffed into the muffler pipe of her car. What do you make of that?
Honestly,
Yeah.
I have no idea.
It's bizarre.
It is. It's one of the biggest mysteries in this whole case. Some people say she was trying to disable the car, but why?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
And some people say maybe she was trying to fix a leak or something, but again, why? And how would that even work?
It's head scratcher.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay, last piece of the puzzle from the crash site. The police bring in search dogs, and they're able to track Maura's scent for about 100 yards east along Route 112, and then it just stops.
Yeah, dead end, just like that.
And the only logical explanation for that is that she got into another vehicle.
Right. Someone picked her up. The question is who and why.
So we're left with this really unsettling picture. A damaged car, a young woman who's vanished without a trace, and a whole bunch of strange and unexplained details. Let's move on to the initial investigation.
All right. So, like in any missing person case, those first few hours, those first few days, they're crucial. You need to gather information fast, secure any potential evidence, and start searching right away.
Especially when someone goes missing in the middle of winter.
Exactly. You're racing against the clock in those conditions.
So by noon the next day, February 10th, Maura is officially classified as a missing person. A BELO is issued.
Right. And everyone's involved in the search. New Hampshire Fish and Game, Maura's family rushes to the area,
Right.
and then you have all these volunteers pouring in, wanting to help.
But like we've said, that terrain is
Oh, it's
tough.
brutal. Dense woods, snow drifts up to your knees,
Yeah.
freezing temperatures. Not easy to search in those conditions.
No kidding. So what was the initial assessment from law enforcement? What did they think happened?
Well, despite the scent dogs losing her trail so quickly, suggesting she got into a car,
Right.
the police initially thought she might have just run away.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They pointed to a few things. That fake email about the death in the family, those MapQuest searches for places up north,
Right.
and the alcohol she bought. They thought maybe she was just trying to disappear, start a new life somewhere.
But that seems a little far-fetched, doesn't it?
It does, especially considering she had no money, no ID, no way to really get very far or start over.
And her dad, Fred Murray, he wasn't buying it either. He was incredibly critical of the police, especially their handling of the first 36 hours.
Yeah, he felt like they didn't take it seriously enough, that they assumed she had just run off
Mm.
and didn't put enough effort into searching for her.
And, you know, when you look at it from his perspective, it's hard to blame him for feeling that way.
Absolutely. He just lost his daughter, and the police are saying, oh, maybe she just ran away. It's got to be devastating.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. So while the police are saying one thing and Fred Murray is saying another, all sorts of theories start popping up about what might have happened to Maura. What were some of the early ones?
Well, one theory, and this is one that the police initially leaned towards, was that she walked off into the woods after the crash and died from exposure, hypothermia.
But that doesn't really fit with the lack of footprints, does it?
Exactly. You would think that if she had wandered off into the woods, there would be some sign, some trail in the snow.
Right, especially in those conditions. So that theory was pretty quickly dismissed. What else?
Another idea was that she did get a ride from someone, like the scent dogs suggested, but that she was trying to run away, maybe start a new life in Canada or something.
Okay, but again, no money, no ID, no phone.
Exactly. And how would she even get across the border?
It doesn't really add up.
No, it does.
And then, of course, there's the theory of abduction.
Right. And this theory gained a lot of traction, especially because of a few things. First, that scent trail ending so abruptly, suggesting someone picked her up.
Mm-hmm.
Second, the fact that there were other young women who had gone missing in that general area around that time. Notably, Brianna Maitland in Vermont, just a month later in March of 2004.
Yeah, that's creepy.
It was very unsettling. And it made people wonder if there was some connection, if maybe there was someone out there targeting young women.
So those early theories, they kind of set the stage for how the case would be viewed for years to come.
They do.
Okay, let's take a quick break.
Sounds good.
All right, we're back, and we're going to jump into a really interesting aspect of this case. The role the internet has played in keeping Maura's story alive, for better or worse.
Right. And it's a unique role, too, because she disappeared right at the dawn of the social media age. I mean, think about it. Facebook launched just a few days after she vanished.
Wow, so she's almost like a case study in how the internet can change the way we view and investigate these mysteries.
Exactly.
So by 2005, online forums like Web Sleuths were buzzing with theories about Maura. And then came the blogs, the dedicated message boards, all devoted to trying to piece together what happened to her.
Yeah, and it was a mixed bag.
How so?
Well, some of these online spaces were really helpful. People shared information, organized searches, really tried to use the power of the internet for good.
Right.
But then there were others that just became breeding grounds for speculation and rumors. Some of it was really nasty.
And for Maura's family, seeing all of that speculation and sometimes just outright lies being spread about their daughter, it had to be incredibly painful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's something that a lot of families of missing persons have to deal with.
And then, of course, you have the major media outlets picking up the story. Shows like 2020, Disappeared,
Right.
the Oxygen Network did a whole series on her.
And that kind of attention, it can be a double-edged sword.
How so?
Well, on the one hand, it brings the case to a much wider audience.
Right.
Maybe someone sees something they didn't think was important before, or someone who knows something finally decides to come forward.
Right.
But on the other hand, the media can sometimes sensationalize these stories.
Oh, yeah.
And that can make things really hard for the family, and it can actually derail the investigation.
Speaking of the dark side of the internet, we have to talk about the MR112 dirtbag videos.
Yeah, those were really disturbing.
These were a series of YouTube videos that appeared in 2012, and they caused a lot of pain for Maura's family.
And they were just so creepy. One video showed this old man cackling and saying, "Happy anniversary," on the 8th anniversary of Maura's disappearance. I mean, who does that?
It's just cruel.
It is. And then another video showed a ski lift pass for the Bretton Woods resort.
And what's so weird about that?
Well, the date on the pass was just 2 days after Maura disappeared.
So very close to the time and place where she vanished.
Yeah, and Bretton Woods is only about an hour from where she crashed her car.
And then there's the name itself, MR112 Dirtbag.
Right, a clear reference to the road where Maura was last seen.
It's chilling.
It is.
Maura's family obviously was devastated by these videos. They called them cruel and hideous, and they begged people not to give the creator the attention they were clearly seeking.
Right. Their focus was on finding Maura, not on some sicko who was trying to exploit their tragedy.
The New Hampshire Attorney General's office actually launched an investigation into the videos.
Trying to figure out who was behind them and if they had any real connection to Maura's case.
Right. And what did they find?
Well, they didn't find any direct evidence linking the person who made the videos to Maura's disappearance.
So it seems like it was just someone being cruel, trying to get attention.
That's what it looks like.
But still, those videos just added another layer of complexity and pain to an already tragic situation.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that the internet can be a powerful tool, but it can also be used for some really terrible things.
Okay, let's move forward to more recent times. We've had some interesting developments in 2025 that have brought a renewed sense of hope to Maura's case.
Yeah, it's like after all these years, we might finally be getting some answers.
Maybe. So for years, Maura's case seemed to be stuck. There were occasional searches, but nothing major was really happening.
Right. But her family, they never gave up.
No, they didn't. Her dad, Fred Murray, he was a relentless advocate for his daughter right up until he passed away in 2023.
Yeah, he never stopped searching for her.
He had this theory that her remains were hidden in a basement somewhere, but unfortunately he died before he could find any proof.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. And then Maura's sister, Julie Murray, she launched a podcast in 2024 called Media Pressure Season 1, and it focuses on the untold story of Maura Murray.
It's a really interesting listen.
I've heard good things.
Yeah, she talks about the media frenzy surrounding the case, the misinformation that's been spread, and she really tries to set the record straight about her sister.
It's like she's taking back control of the narrative.
Exactly.
The New Hampshire State Police, they've also been revisiting the case periodically over the years.
Right. They've conducted searches in 2017, 2019, 2021, and even as recently as 2023.
Yeah, they've been focusing mainly on the area around the crash site, but so far they haven't found anything conclusive.
It's frustrating, but it shows that they haven't given up on the case.
And then this year, 2025, the 21st anniversary of Maura's disappearance brought a renewed wave of attention. There was a vigil held at the Mountain Lakes Lodge in Woodsville, New Hampshire.
Yeah, and it was a really moving event. A lot of people came out to show their support for Maura's family and to keep the case in the public eye.
And then, in March, investigative journalist James Renner, who has been following this case for years, reported a potential major breakthrough. He claimed that fingerprints taken from Maura's car had been re-examined using new technology and that they matched a man named Stephen Baldwin.
Yeah, that was big news.
So who is this Stephen Baldwin?
Well, he's a former West Point cadet, lived in Massachusetts back in 2004 when Maura disappeared.
Okay.
He's 45 now, reportedly has a history of DUIs, and there was an assault charge against him in 2015.
But it's important to note that there's no direct link between Stephen Baldwin and Maura's disappearance other than this fingerprint match.
Exactly. At this point, he's just a person of interest.
But James Renner, on his blog about the case, pointed out that back in 2004, Stephen Baldwin was stationed at Fort Devens, which is only about 50 miles from UMass Amherst.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Makes you wonder.
It does.
So as of today, April 1st, 2025, the New Hampshire State Police have confirmed that they are investigating Stephen Baldwin as a person of interest. But they're being very tight-lipped about it. No arrests have been made, and they're not saying much else.
Right. They're just saying the investigation is ongoing.
Which is understandable.
Of course.
Maura's sister, Julie, when asked about this new development, she just said, "We just want to know where she is."
That's all they want after all these years. Just to know what happened to their sister.
It's heartbreaking.
It is.
And then there's this other thing that's been making the rounds on TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, some people have been using AI, artificial intelligence, to analyze Maura's MapQuest searches from the day she disappeared.
Really?
Yeah, and some are claiming that this analysis points to a specific cabin in the White Mountains.
Interesting.
It's hard to know what to make of that, but it shows how technology and social media can be used to try and solve these old mysteries.
Yeah, it's a whole new world of investigation.
For sure.
But it comes with its own set of problems. I mean, anyone can post anything online.
Right. You have to be careful about what you believe. Okay, so with this new information, particularly the focus on Stephen Baldwin, it seems like we need to re-examine all the old theories about Maura's disappearance.
Yeah, we have a new piece of the puzzle, so we need to see how it fits with everything else.
Let's start with the exposure theory. The idea that Maura just walked off into the woods and died from the cold.
Right.
We've already said this is unlikely, but does the fact that Stephen Baldwin is now a person of interest change that assessment at all?
I don't think so. I mean, if Maura did get into a car with someone, as the scent dog evidence suggests, then it's much less likely that she just wandered off and died.
Right, it seems like she left the area in a vehicle.
Exactly.
What about the voluntary disappearance theory?
The idea that she ran away to start a new life.
Right. The big problem with that theory has always been the lack of any evidence that she's alive and well somewhere. No money, no ID, no contact with family or friends. Does Stephen Baldwin's potential involvement change that at all?
It's hard to say. I mean, if she met him willingly, maybe it was part of her plan to disappear. But even then, how has she survived all these years without any resources?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is.
So that brings us to abduction.
Or foul play.
Right. And the fact that Stephen Baldwin is now a person of interest definitely adds weight to this theory, wouldn't you say?
It does. It gives the
It-
police